Welcome to another episode of the Rebel Truth. We're trying to define what to call this. Is it the Rebel Truth podcast, the show? We don't know, but what we do know is that we have Joe Coopson today with us. Jenny and I have known Joe for the last 5 years, since 2020. I think we met Joe during COVID. We were
That's
buying
right.
some chicken crates. So, hey, Joe, welcome to the pod. We are super happy to have you, dude. You are a true inspiration to a lot of pastured poultry producers in this country. I can't wait to dig in more to your story. But also just want to put it out there that Joe is a partner farm of ours that we have worked with for the last couple of years. I don't think there is a better pastured poultry producer in this country today. So I am super proud to work with you, super excited. I think you embody the true American spirit of grit, of hustle, of give a damn, of working hard, and you're a first generation farmer. Joe,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Can't wait to get into details on this.
Yeah, that was very kind words, and I appreciate it. And you guys have been awesome to work with, and I think the relationship is just like exponentially grown in trust and in yeah, as we've worked with each other, it's just gone so good.
Yeah, so me and Jenny, we're at a point in life where number one, we chose to build this during COVID, and we'll get into that story, but we are long-term people. We're not looking for a quick transaction. We're not looking for a quick, trying to get the best price on the best person each single time. That's not it. We're looking for a
That's right.
win-win-win. That's who we are. We want to win ourselves, we want our producers to win, and we want our customers to win by getting high quality proteins that truthfully are very hard to get in this country. There's a lot of deceptive
Yep.
practices. There's a lot of label claims that are very misleading, very confusing. And that's what this is all about. We're just exposing that. That's honestly that's what Rebel's about. We want to bring truth to the American
Hmm.
consumers who have been misled. We'll just put it that
That's
way
right.
by some big agricultural conglomerates. A lot of them aren't even American. And so, anyway, super excited to get into this. So maybe you can just start with the origins of your story. Where did Joe's farm start? I know it started you as a young age with some chickens. We
Hmm.
started with chickens. I think that chickens are probably the gateway drug to farming.
Absolutely, they are. Yep. So I didn't grow up with a farming background at all. I think like everybody, like their grandparents had a farm of some kind, possibly, or their parents had a farm, but nothing where I had ever grown up seeing anyone farm in my family. Um, our family business was construction. My dad and uncle and grandpa did that on my dad's side, and then my mom's side, my grandpa was a pastor and my grandma was a teacher. So no farming background. My cousin showed rabbits in 4-H, and I was homeschooled. So as a homeschooler, um, I was also not good at sports. There were homeschool sports, but I was no good at them. So I was looking for something to like just a community, a club to get involved with. And my cousin said, "Why don't you come to 4-H with me?" And I tagged along to one of her club meetings. Enjoyed it. Didn't think too much of it. I don't think I even joined right then. But within a month or so after that, my dad and I went into Tractor Supply, and it was just happened to be during their spring chick days, and walked out with three little baby chickens, and it kind of grew like rapid fire, just chicken, chicken, chicken. After that, I was looking for more and more and more, and like you said, it's like the gateway drug. It really like you just really get hooked on chickens. They're so fun. Um, I was doing it for eggs, so it was just like every day I got to go out and collect eggs and have a bounty from my work, and that was really rewarding, especially as a young man, just seeing my hard work being paid off immediately. I didn't have like the long term vision then of like, it takes a cow like 2 or 3 years to be ready to butcher. I probably would have had no desire to do that at that point because I couldn't think that that long distance. So chickens were a great entry level thing to farming. This is all in the suburbs of a smaller town, but right around that time, I had 50 chickens in town, and the local government was starting to talk: Are chickens, are they pets? Are they livestock? And they ended up settling on like 6 chickens, and you got to put in like a privacy fence and all this stuff. So my dad started looking for just a small piece of property outside of town. He found a vacant lot with a well already on it, which was really nice, and it was 2.5 acres. Bought that and started farming on that in 2011 when I was 15 years old. Started with egg layers, and then in through 4-H started showing meat birds, turkeys, pigs. Um, and then really started making go of the business around that 2011 time, selling at farmers markets, selling at a roadside stand, and then kind of just grew from there with people coming to the farmers markets, more wholesale customers. So one of the first farmers markets we went to was inside a hospital, Bronson Hospital, and the head of the kitchen at that time was like, "Hey, we have a new initiative to buy local. What would it look like if we were to buy eggs from you?" And I was like, "Oh wow, like I don't know, like I got to look into the legality of it." And they were like, "Well, we already know the legality of it, and you're not legal yet to sell to us. So here's what you need to do." And mind you, I'm still 15 years old. My mom's driving me to the farmers market, and I didn't really know how to handle these kinds of conversations. So I was probably, but they thought that was fun. I I really used my age to my advantage when I was younger. So people were all about a 15-year-old getting drove around by his mom to hustle eggs, and I was meeting people in parking lots to buy two or three. But so from there, it kind of progressed. We eventually got our egg handling license, got into some wholesale accounts, and then uh, and then through APA, American Pasture Poultry Producers Association, started meeting a lot more people. I'm not sure if that's how we got connected or not, but I know that we were right around the same time. We kind of found APA at the same time. Um, and it's just, yeah, it's just kind of grown from there. And now we're one of the better known pastured broiler producers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's interesting. You're talking about the local municipality interference with your 5, 6 chickens in the backyard.
Yeah.
We were talking this week earlier. We had to deal with our own local township too. I mean, they came after us, and we went to the state legislation or the legislators and talked about the Right to Farm Act. I mean, we had to
Right.
do some research, and I'm glad I did because I think
Hmm.
unfortunately a lot of people don't realize that that law is there not just protect them against the citizens from doing something crazy, illegal, radical, but it's also to protect us from them being crazy, radical,
That's right.
and illegal,
Yes.
right? And so it's
Yep.
super important as farmers to understand the law is to protect us as well.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So, we didn't have we didn't have a lot to do with we after they made the law, we kind of just like, all right, well, we'll go because we were never going to be able to expand. Like, we were just in a little suburb. But even after we moved out of town into a local village city limits where uh, we still were under the Right to Farm Act, and we still had some pushback on certain things. Really, there was never a complaint by a neighbor or anything. It was really just people trying to push their power a little bit, and it never progressed to much,
You
thankfully.
mean it was
But
the central planners trying to control things?
that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Sounds very
thankfully,
familiar.
yeah, thankfully, my dad had enough understanding of how to find the right. I was still a kid, so I didn't know a lot of this. It kind of made me grow up a little bit, and probably influenced a lot of my views today. Um, but he was very quick to find the Right to Farm Act and got things going, and they kind of backed off. So once we kind of came out with like, hey, look, we have every right to do what we're doing here. It lays it out in the state, this document, Right to Farm Act. So
I'm not trying to make all local zoning ordinance people and the township people. I'm not trying to make them out to be bad people. I think
right,
that truthfully, when it comes to farming, I think that there is ignorance on their part. I think that
that's
there
right.
is a lack of understanding of what the Right to Farm Act truthfully means and what is there to
Hmm.
do. And I think it's also, for Jenny and I, we had to go and educate them. But then
That's right.
once we did that, they were still pushing back. And it can be very
Hmm.
intimidating for a lot of people who want to get started in this, who are concerned about every move, about having somebody looking over their shoulder. And I
Right.
mean, talk about what a way to steal a thunder out of somebody, especially you as a 15-year-old kid, just getting going. Like, I'm sure there's a better way to approach that. But
Right.
it sounds like maybe in a similar fashion it did for me, it probably put some fuel under your wings because I know it
Yeah.
did
Right.
for
Yeah.
me. Like, tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna find a way. Like,
Yeah, that's right.
but I think that is the American spirit. That
Hmm.
is how this country was founded. And this is not a political statement, but when people came and found this country, it was rugged. It was
Hmm.
it was not a guarantee.
That's right.
Like people had to go out there and make something and take that
Hmm.
risk. And I respect people who do that to this day. I have a lot of respect for people that are willing to take on risks, to take a challenge, and especially with farming, when you're raising an animal, in your situation, livestock, to
Hmm.
produce a product, a healthy product for people to consume. I mean,
That's right.
what an honorable profession, in my opinion. So, all right.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say that before we leave that topic, like I think with townships, a lot of them are focused on growth, right? On bringing on in more residents and growing their income for the town by people paying taxes. But they just like the majority of people in our country, there's not a focus on farming. They don't look at agriculture as a benefit to them. So there's not an appreciation and understanding how important agriculture is in our communities, particularly rural communities that need to be built up and supported. So I think it's we've just kind of moved away from that. Unfortunately, there's more focus on development than there is on supporting agriculture.
I'll add to that one thing too is even if there is a hardly ever a focus, but even if there is an agriculture um, focus or whatever you want to say, even if there is talk about agriculture and there's understanding about agriculture, a lot of times it's commercial agriculture and they almost laugh at like the way we do things, right? So it's like,
Yes.
a lot of the like Justin, you said like it kind of put some fuel in your fire to like keep going, right? So it's like a lot of that fuel now is fueled by big ag saying, "Oh, you guys can't feed the world this way," and overnight that's true. Like if commercial farms just went away overnight, our country would starve to death. So I'm not saying that that's the way we should do it, but I think we should always be getting better and working towards a better food system that's more resilient, more transparent, and produces healthier food for the consumer. So I don't see. I've never understood why that's like a almost like offends people sometimes where it's like, well, we've done it this way forever. Why is the way we've done it wrong? And it's like, well, there's a lot of things that are coming out now that this is really bad for the soil. This is bad for, X, Y, and Z. But a lot of that fuel now is like people, other big ag, not like our local farmers. I love our local farmers and they're great, but big ag, not directly to me necessarily, but saying, oh no, this is how we have to do things and this is how we're going to do it regardless of, you know, someone having a better way to do something.
Yeah. Or
well,
even just allowing room for something different, or allowing room for small farms to even begin. Like that was kind of the approach that, or the feedback we got from our township when we first started, was they were just kind of like, you're trying to start a farm, ha, like
Yeah, right.
prove it,
Yeah.
instead of like, no, that is the Right to Farm Act. Like, yes, that we don't have to prove
Hmm.
it, this is what we're doing, like. And yeah, so it was kind of like them laughing at us, like, who does that?
Right.
yeah, Joe, our township even came back to us after we went back and forth with attorneys, and I have a business background, so I reached out to some people in my network and ended up talking to a pretty significant law firm who gave us pro bono and helped us with this
Oh,
Right
nice.
to Farm Act. And they tried making us sign an affidavit. Our township tried, their attorneys drafted this BS affidavit stating all these different things. They wanted us to disclose how much of our income came from farming, how much of our income came from this. It's like, tell me where in the Right to
Yeah,
Farm Act
right.
or any other Michigan law or federal law
Mhm.
that it says anything about this. It did not
That's right.
exist. It did not
Yeah.
exist. And they had the audacity to try to pull one over on us. I was
Hmm.
floored, absolutely floored. And so to this day, I will remain skeptical of anybody in power. I am, as a former combat Marine who served 2 tours in Iraq, I am skeptical of anyone in power who has the
That's right.
authority, who has that power to make such significant changes and rules that aren't even legal.
That's right. Yeah.
It, it's insane. It's insane.
Yep.
So, all right.
And that's a true testament to taking your local elections pretty seriously. Everyone always is about the federal election, but your state and local government is super important and actually probably has more effect on your day-to-day life than the federal government does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
disagree with you there.
Great point,
Jenny
Jeff.
and I aren't political. We're not this or that or whatever. I'll tell you what we are though. We're Americans who love freedom.
Hmm. That's right.
We believe in the Constitution, what it was originally designed for, the intent of it. Um, I think that it can be a slippery slope. So we just want the right to do what's right. We want the
Hmm.
right to provide value, to serve people, to start a business. I believe that is
That's
the
right.
American way. I think it's the American dream to build a business that you can serve people. And so that's what we're about, serving people. This is not political to us. So, Joe,
That's right.
what was the defining moment that made you commit to regenerative farming? Why did you go the regenerative farming route versus conventional? Why not grow a bunch of chickens in chicken houses? You know, it would have been easier for you. You wouldn't have all the labor. You wouldn't need all the equipment that you have out there on pastures, moving 100,000 chickens around on pasture. Why didn't
Yeah.
you do it the easy way?
So I kind of did start. I wasn't like super conventional, but on a small scale, a free range. Free range to me meaning you have a fixed structure. Birds are allowed to go out from that structure and forage. On a small scale, when we were still at like 200 or 300 birds, 400 birds, it actually worked all right. Um, the birds they weren't in such a confined area to where they couldn't immediately get on pasture as soon as they were let outside. Then we went to a bigger barn that held, I believe, 2,500 chickens, 2,500 egg laying chickens, and tried to do the same thing and quickly realized that it does not work um, at that same level. So birds,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of them didn't want to go outside. The few that did go outside mostly stayed right around the barn, and you would see uh, just soil degradation right around the building. So they've eaten all the grass, anything rooted is gone. It's now just a moonscape. There's no bugs or anything around that area. They've eaten all of them. A few would go out and forage in stuff, but probably like 5% or less, and that's from a 1,200 or a 2,500 bird barn. Um, and of course, commercial guys, those are the birds that they go take pictures of, right? Those are the ones that they're out there taking pictures of those birds, not the birds that are in the barn. And then in the barn, you know, it's a mess. I mean, there's so many birds in there where you're expecting them to go out and forage and really defecate out on pasture. They're not. They're inside defecating inside, right where they're eating. And it was around that time I went to uh, Joel Salatin's farm, Polyface Farm, and saw what they were doing as far as moving birds every day or every so often. However, I'm not sure exactly what their practices are, but it was just it was awesome to be around. It was clean. It was enjoyable to be there. Every bird was on pasture, regardless of whether they were eating, drinking. I mean, it's just they had to be on pasture. So after that tour, I think that was summer of 18, came back and immediately made A-frame chicken coop on wheels on a old hay wagon. I mean, it was like I still got it, but it's falling apart. Put 350 chickens out on pasture with electric netting around them, and started doing that. And it was like a night and day difference. Like
Mhm.
the birds were healthier, chores were way more enjoyable. The ground was healthier. Um, the I didn't really know it at the time because the science hadn't really been there yet, but the eggs were far healthier. Um, and we never turned back. So after that, we immediately started going to uh, mobile coops. So we built, I think, three more giant A-frame coops, got all of our birds out of that barn and onto pasture where they were being moved around. And we've never looked back since. So, like I said, we started with egg layers, and quickly moved to broilers. And broilers is even more dramatic because a broiler, yes, they will. I mean, it's a misnomer that broilers don't walk, but are. They're not going to walk like a hen's going to walk. They're not going to go anywhere near like way out into a pasture somewhere 200 yards from a barn. They're just never going to find it. They're never going to go that far. So we never raised broilers inside. Um, from day one, we started them in movable coops, and that's been it's just been so important for the health of the soil and the bird to force those birds. We move them every day, so force those birds to get up, walk, get to a new salad bar, a new bug bar, and get off of their manure that in a conventional barn they're on it 24/7 for their entire life. So um, it was we started off kind of conventional, didn't really know what regenerative was, but it was just like so obvious to us once we saw another system through Joel Salatin's system that that's what we needed to do. And I wasn't oblivious, really. Like I'd seen YouTube videos of his setup, but once we had done it in not that way, and seeing how destructive it was for the bird and for the land, and for honestly the enjoyment of our our days doing chores. It's just not fun being in a ammonia filled barn that's just like you start crying when you go in there because there's just so much manure load in there. It's just it was like, no, this isn't right. So it was kind of a no brainer once we tested it and it was working, that we just doubled down on that system, and we've never looked back since.
I wish that the American consumer could all walk through a chicken barn, through a hog barn, through a cattle feedlot. I wish people could see how conventionally raised meats are raised.
That's
I
right.
understand why there are some Americans who are vegetarians. I get it.
Hmm.
I get some of those principles of not wanting to support that methodology of raising animals. I get it. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
Jenny and I believe that we need to consume high quality proteins. We need to
Yes.
consume meat, specifically meat. We need meat in our diet, right?
Hmm.
So this is what really
Yep.
started our journey and for us as well. Joel Salatin played a pivotal part early on. I think it's one of the first. I think it was the first farm that we visited on our farm tour, and it opened our eyes. At the time, we were raising a couple hundred chickens, and I thought just chickens were the future completely. And then we go there, and they're like, "Oh, do you want
Yeah.
to see the cattle herd?" I'm like, "I don't care about cattle. I'm just here for the chickens," you know. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until we went to White Oak Pastures with Will Harris, and you see his thousands of cattle, like, "Oh, okay," you know.
Hmm.
It really opened our eyes. But
Right.
those were the early days for us of being exposed to regenerative agriculture, and I'm so thankful that we had people. Uh, Honestly, you were probably the first farm that we visited that was a regenerative farm. Seeing how you were raising your chickens, seeing you move the chickens across your fields every single day, and seeing the direct distinctive difference where they were a day
Hmm.
before, 5 days before, 10 days before, 2 weeks before. You can see the difference in the grass and how it comes back, and it's amazing, right? And once you see it once, you're like,
Absolutely.
you don't need a scientific explanation. You're like, oh,
That's right.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
Yep.
pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
didn't know that you had started with them in a barn. So that's kind of interesting to hear your experience like with seeing it firsthand that chickens don't really leave the barn. You know, if even if they give an opportunity, once
Hmm.
you get to a certain scale, they don't really leave the barn. So that's really interesting to hear you say that. Um and it's cool to hear to see like the experimentation. We Justin always talk about how like farming is one big experiment. You're like going from one experiment to another as you
That's right. Yeah.
figure just like slowly
It could
figure
be
it
it
out
could
as
be
you
a very
go.
expensive experiment though.
Yeah, sometimes
And
you
Yes.
costly.
figure it out the hard way. I know that you have definitely we've talked to you a lot over the years about different failed experiments on your farm and
That's
just like
right.
we've had them on our
Yep.
farm.
We call it
Um,
failing forward.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah, yeah. So let's go a little bit into you being a first generation farmer. What were some
Mhm.
of the risks that you had to take on? Like, what was it like being a first generation farmer? Yeah, at what point did you take on more where your dad kind of let you go and you handled more yourself? What was that like?
Yep. So my parents were both very involved, even though I didn't come from a farming background. They were both very involved in. My mom washed eggs all the time. My dad was doing. I mean, my dad still to this day will drive things around the country for me. He'll go pick something up. He'll come down here, help do projects. So I say I'm a first generation farmer, but that's not to say that I didn't have a lot of help along the way. There's many people, family, friends, that helped. But what I didn't have, and it's a blessing, was a preconceived notion of how to do something. So there was no pressure from you hear all these horror stories of, I want to take over the family farm, but my dad or my grandpa or my uncle says, I've got to do it this way, the way they've always done it, or I can't participate in the farm. And I just think that's such a blessing coming from um, a supportive family, but not having to do something that I didn't want to do because I wanted to, please the norm
Hmm.
of what we've done for years and years and years, and mess up a generation or multi-generational farm. I say mess up. I don't mean mess up like it would probably be making it better, but messing up the idea in someone's mind of what it should be.
Status quo.
So exactly. So I didn't have a status quo to follow, which was kind of nerve wracking, and probably in hindsight was probably pretty nerve wracking for my parents because um, they didn't know if it was going to work out or not. There was nothing to base it on. Um, but later on in life, I found out that they were talking to other farmers at the farmers markets and saying, "Hey, is this something we should be encouraging our son to do? Is this a good lifestyle? Is he gonna, is he gonna be able to make a living? Is he able to feed a family?" And thankfully, they were all, "Yeah, if he puts in enough hard work and makes good choices, it's a great lifestyle. It's you know, as a farmer, you'll never not be able to feed your family if you're okay at raising food. But is this something that we should be encouraging our son to do, or is he going to get into a ton of debt?" And you hear of all the depression in farming, and so there's just a lot of things that they were looking out for that I didn't know about at the time, and I'm really thankful that they were. And they were asking the hard questions to other farmers, just to make sure that they were encouraging me down a path that they should be. But I think I was pretty blessed in the fact that a first generation farmer, no status quo, but still support from loved ones is huge. And I didn't know at the time, but like looking back and seeing farmers nowadays like that is like bigger than any, like, you get some farm partner or financial investment or any kind, like having the support of family and without any bias towards a certain thing is just tremendous and very helpful.
That,
I think there's a
that's
lot
awesome,
to
Joe.
unpack there. Jenny, can we just take a minute, unpack a couple things there, double click into that? Joe talked about the advantage of not having any preconceived ideals around how things should be farmed. Joe talked about starting something from nothing, first generation farmer. You talked about debt. A lot of farming is a very capital intensive industry. It makes it very hard for
Mhm.
first generation farmers to get into, both the cost of land. As we try to acquire land here for me and Jenny for our farms, we're competing against developers. And that makes the land go for
That's right.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times more per acre than what farmland would go for. It makes it very challenging.
Hmm.
And as a parent, as a father uh, in my family, it makes me concerned about my kids' generation and the generation after them, and the
Hmm.
generation after them. How do we keep this going where we can have American farmers raising food for us? Right now, the system is stacked. The odds are stacked against the first-time farmer. I, let me
Hmm.
back up here. I think they're stacked against the first-time farmer going into the industry in a conventional system. To enter into the system or to enter into the market, I think we have to be different. I think we have to come from a different approach. We
That's right.
can't sell our product as a commodity into the market for the same price that everybody's paying for. There has to be something special about the product. There has to be something different about it. For us,
Hmm.
we started our health journey really. Jenny started before me. We were down in Texas ourselves on another business, and Jenny was doing some health issues, and she really started to dig deep into what was going on. And what we found are some of her levels were like drastically void of nutrition, and that kind of started our journey. And
Hmm.
then at one point we went without eating meat. We thought that was the right answer, And
Yep.
in 2020 though, when we dug into it, started learning about it, that's when we learned that not all meat is the same. Not all meat is raised the
That's right.
same. Not all meat has the same nutritional value. Not all meat has the same health value for our bodies and consumption. So, uh, I want to encourage first generation farmers. Farming is a very capital intensive, labor intensive, emotionally intensive industry. It's not for the faint of heart. Unfortunately, we have seen a lot of people that we know come and go. We've seen them start
Hmm.
and we've seen them struggle, grinding all the hours and going to the farmers markets. We did the farmers markets. We would be raising animals
Yep.
all day, every day, and then late at night and Friday night, we're loading up the freezers, stocking them up to go to the farmers market at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, and then you work there till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you're exhausted from interacting with people all day long, and then you grab a bite
Hmm.
to eat, you race home to go do chores, and that is your
That's
weekend.
right.
There's no rest for the farm, and it's not an easy life, but the
But
reward, the purpose to feeding people is incredible. Jenny?
That's right.
yes, and what I was going to say to Joe's point about not having to unlearn things. If you're born into a generational farm that's been farming conventionally, and if even if you want to make a change, like you have to unlearn everything that you've not only just you learned, but your all those generations have learned. So if you can by starting fresh, like I think it just puts you ahead first of all, and then second of all, we're in a world where we have so much access to communication. We can sell directly to people. I just, it's a different world than it used to be where we can just interact with our customers so directly. And I think that's also a huge benefit and a positive for a first generational farmer, somebody that's trying to get into farming.
Definitely. And my big go-to with first generation farmers is in our industry of regenerative pasture raised, small farms, you can start small and start, get, a lot of people go into farming specifically no wanting to learn how to farm, which is great. You need to learn how to farm. But when you're a business owner, you also have to learn business. So a lot of people know how to grow food, but they don't know how to make that a long, you know, they don't their farm isn't it doesn't have longevity because they can't make a profit. Their expenses are too high. Their income is too low or whatever it is. There's lots of things, lots of facets. So start small and get really good at raising birds, at selling birds, at keeping records, at knowing your numbers, um, before you ever even go talk about, like, we didn't take on debt for a long time. We do have debt now, but it was after we had proof of concept and we had customers and we had demand to fill. It wasn't just, I need to go start a farm, I better go get a $500,000 loan from the bank to buy a piece of property and buy a big tractor and buy fuel tanks and buy a gator and buy a truck and buy seed and all this stuff. It just adds up so much. Um, and then the commercial guys are at the whim of the market. Like, they don't even set their own price. And I'm like, that is just, I don't know, that I would not sleep well at night if I didn't have control over my expenses or my income, but I held all the responsibility, all the debt, all the downside is on me, and all the upside is on everybody else. And that's the trap that a lot of farmers get into, unfortunately.
And that is the conventional system, vertically integrated,
Hmm.
right? So
That's
they
right,
they
and it
own
traps it
they
traps them in it.
yep, they're stuck. They're stuck. They take all.
Yep.
Let me back this up. So the bigs, they're vertically integrated. They own the hatchery. Actually, they own the genetics. They own the hatcheries,
Hmm.
logistics. So then the farmer takes on a contract with this fill in the blank name big guy, and they take on all the risk
Hmm.
of debt for their infrastructure, for their growing operation, their barns, the feed, whatever the case is. Uh, and if they don't toe the line and play the game the way that they're told to play it, they're disincentivized. They are no longer at the top
That's
of
right.
the list of who's going to get the birds. They're going down. So that's their
Hmm.
livelihood. You
That's
talked
right.
about depression. Let's talk about suicide. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but like, it's a
Hmm.
real thing in farming. That weight,
It
that
really is. Yep.
it's a huge the debt. You have a family. You could be around for 100 years. You don't want to let that down. The land. There's so much there. Marriages, relationships. Hey, why can't we ever go on a
Hmm.
vacation? Well, one, we might not have the money, and two, dad's got to work, and we got to work on the farm, and just that's a heavy load. That is a heavy load.
Hmm. Yep. And if it's a bumper crop of chickens, they don't have any of the upside anyways. It's like, I don't, no one's holding a gun to anyone's head to sign a contract, but I feel like there is a lot of misleading things in those contracts that people just don't think about or don't see. That in their mind they're like, okay, I could take out, $1 million to build a two barn farm, chicken farm, and maybe at the end of 20 years you'll have a paid for barn, and otherwise you haven't really made any money along the way. So I just and who knows what kind of what kind of quality that barn's going to be in 20 years. It's just,
20 years
I've
is
been to a few. I've actually been
dilapidated.
to, exactly, yeah, and I've been to a meeting where it was a commercial farmer wanting farmers around the area to put up barns, and it didn't take but 5 minutes looking over the sheet of what you're in charge of as far as expenses and what you'll get paid, and based on these different things, that I was just like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why anyone would ever sign this contract, but people do, and I think it's just, I want to farm and I don't want to have to deal with finding a customer for them. So this is just a guaranteed customer. It's easy, but like you said, Justin, if you don't follow suit with exactly what they say, if you don't play their game, then you're screwed. And they're gonna somehow figure out a loophole to get out of the contract, and now you're not getting out of your contract with the bank for those barns. Um, so and that's why, then farmers feel like they've failed their families, and that's just a snowballing effect from there. And it's
Yeah.
and it's one of the reasons why um, suicide is so high in farmers, but it's also a reason why we're losing farms at such a dramatic pace. And it's honestly a national security issue. And the big guys love it. The big guys love that farms are going away because that just gives them more and more control over the system.
Consolidation.
And I exactly. And I just hope that we saw this resurgent during COVID of a lot of farms getting in. Unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot of those farms getting back out. A lot of them did not make it. They took on a lot of they got a lot of money from grants, started a farm, couldn't make it work, and now they're back into the corporate world. Which I get it. I understand people have to make decisions for themselves, but we've got to have a marketplace, in my opinion, more than government subsidies. A marketplace that allows people to make a fair wage and a fair living as a farmer, and not like, okay, the farmer should. People, for some reason, like people like if you were to say, okay, your farmer is driving a nice car, for some reason they think that's like they've gotten ripped off then on their food or something. Like their farmer doesn't deserve to have anything nice. The farmer should be the one holding the bag, should be uh live in a dirty house. Like the farmer deserves the least amount of um credit, or as in a free market, money, flows to whoever provides the most value. Well, if they can't make a living at it, and a quality living, they're going to go to the person that's going to offer them a better living. And a lot of times that's a corporate job, and a lot of times they work a corporate job and farm because it's in their blood to want to farm. um it's just yeah, it's sad, and that's why I really love the path that you guys are on and we're on, and to change that system.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're speaking from
So
the heart here. When we were, go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say, Joe, like this has become our new rally cry. We have met so many awesome people that are out there grinding hard, taking on the risk financially, taking out debt to raise the animals, putting in the hours. And oh, by the way, farming is not a 40-hour a week job. It's just not. It's
Right.
actually
Yeah.
every hour of the week job, right? It is. When you have
Hmm.
life living on pasture or wherever it is that is living, you're responsible for it. And your decisions or failure
Right.
to act could be the difference between life and death. So we meet these farmers who they just want to raise the product. They just want to raise the animals. They want to be out in the land, raising the cattle, raising the chickens, raising the hogs. The last thing they have the bandwidth, the time, the energy to do is figure out how to sell it, to figure out how to build an online website, how to,
Yep.
e-commerce store, how to ship product, knowing all the rules, regulations, and the laws, learning about finance, taxes, accountants. I mean, just all of it, right? It's a lot. So for Jenny and I,
Hmm.
one of the things that has
Hmm.
become, we started farming. We still farm. This is our 7th year of farming. But what fires me up inside is giving that farmer, that American farmer, hit the family farm, truly the family farm. And we go to each partner's
Yep.
farm. We go to their home. Their farm is generally their home. We go to their homes. We've seen the spouses. We've seen the kids. All they want to do is raise animals and provide a life for their family. They're not even asking for much. They're
That's right.
they're just asking to not go bankrupt. Is basically what they're asking for. So
Hmm.
it fires me up. It fires Jenny up to be able to give these guys and girls a platform to do what they want to do, to support them. We're not beating them up over price. We're looking for a fair price from the market to support American farmers. Because when we don't have American farmers, we do have a national security crisis. We've got a serious issue.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
I love America. It's got its problems, but I'm American. I'm going to support my country. I'm going to support my fellow man and woman, and I want them to thrive. I want them to do well. I want them to carry on that lifestyle and that legacy, because without it, we're going to have to toe the line to some big bureaucratic BS system that's going to tell us what we can eat, when we can eat it, and how we're going to eat it. And oh, by the way, I don't want to eat some
Yep.
engineered meat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother tangent. It's just like so many things.
Yeah. And on top of that,
We'll have to
like
do this again at
we
some point.
encourage our farmers to be talk about that another one. We encourage our partner farms to be independent. We want them to be really successful.
Mhm.
You know, like charge it. We want to pay them enough so that it's a farm that can be generational. We want them to live great lives, and
That's
we
right.
and also we don't want to be their only customer. Because if we're their only customer, then that's
Hmm.
vertical integration, and that's not what we want. We want them to have lots of
That's
customers
right.
because that's more resilient for them. So we're trying to encourage
Exactly.
a system that where these farmers continue to be resilient and grow and be whether they want to stay small or they want to grow, like whatever that is, but just teaching them and to value themselves properly as they should.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's talk about what was formerly known as Joe's Farm. We met you 2020. At the time,
Okay.
you're raising, I don't know how many chickens you were raising back then, but I think you had some layers and some broilers. But can you walk us through 2020 to where we are now in 2026? You made a big move from Michigan down to Texas. I'd love to hear why,
That's right.
how that transition happened. So, can you unpack that story from 2020, where you're at, what you're raising, how many, and then walk us to today?
Yep. So 2020 was a huge growth year for us. Prior to 2020, like 2019, I think we were at like 3,000 broilers a year, and we probably had 2 to 3,000 egg-laying chickens. Uh, 2020 rolls around. Obviously, the pandemic. People are way more interested in where their food's coming from. Um, and a friend of ours' farm that was actually being sold. So they couldn't raise birds anymore, but they still wanted to sell birds and provide their customers with birds. Um, Primal Pastures out in California came to us and said, "Hey, would you be interested in raising birds for us?" And I said, "Absolutely." Um, then from that, it kind of snowballed as far as okay. So in 2020 or 2019, we went from 3,000 birds to 2020. I think we finished 13,000 roughly. Um,
Wow.
hadn't had an employee before that, I don't think. And if it was like a friend, helping out here and there. Um, 2020, I think immediately went to like 2 or 3 employees. Um, and once you kind of get your foot in the door in pastured poultry, there's not very many of us. So people start looking, people who need meat, whether it be wholesale or retail or whatever, um, you kind of get on a short list and people start calling and asking. Um, we met in 2020. I remember you guys pulling up in your horse trailer and us stacking chicken crates or nesting. I think it's chicken crates up
Yeah.
in there, and you were like, "Hey, we want to start farming. Like, show us around. How do you do this kind of stuff?" And and then I think it was only 2 years or something. I can't remember the exact year that we started working with you guys. And it was the same thing. It's like, hey, our production isn't necessarily where our market's at. We need more chicken. Would you be interested in raising chicken for us? And it's just so anyway, so along the path, somewhere in like 2022, I think we were doing like 35,000 chickens. And then 2024, we made a jump to 100,000 broilers, moved every single day on pasture in Michigan. Um, and the market, the need in the market for what we're producing is very, very large. It's bigger than we could probably ever do with our land mass in Michigan that was available to us, but also a huge a huge issue that we always were trying to figure out and we could never figure out is we were only processing about 6 months out of the year in Michigan. Um, so we still have all of our infrastructure costs. All of our employees want to work year round. They don't want to work just 6 months out of the year. Our customers want chicken 6 months out of the year. They want to pay for chicken 6 months out, or they want chicken 12 months out of the year. They don't want it 6 months out of the year. They want to pay for it year round, not just in 6 months or 1 month or 2 month period. Um, so cash flow was a huge issue. Um, and our infrastructure costs per bird are much higher because we can't we can't draw that out over an entire year's worth of chicken. It's in a 6 month period. So we knew I think we started looking for a farm in Texas. We just really liked Texas. We'd come down and visited the Waco area several times, and visited and really liked it. I think we started looking for farms. We visited a farm that was for sale back in 2021. Um, and nothing, it just never worked out between now or from then to till now. But then the stars all kind of aligned on this property down here. We made an offer in December of 23, got it. I'm sorry, December of 24, got it accepted or closed in February of 25, and started farming in April, May, June, something like that. I think June was our first batch being processed of 2025, and then farmed both locations, Michigan and Texas, for all of the summer of 2025. Realized, okay, we were right in Texas. We were right in our thinking that year-round production is a ginormous benefit to everybody involved, even down to the consumer, because there's just the more efficient we are, the better pricing we can give down the line. So we saw the writing on the wall that we were eventually going to move everything down here, and decided to just kind of bite the bullet and do it sooner than we probably expected to. But as of yesterday, our farm stores closed down in Michigan. We've sold a bunch of our equipment this past week at a farm sale, and we're going all in Texas, where we can do it year round. And we haven't compromised on any of our values. So we still are moving our birds every single day. We still offer non-GMO feed. All these things, nothing's changed. It's just that we can do it year round makes the world a difference. So that's why we decided to move down here.
Totally get it. Totally get it. I want to take a second here to kind of bring a point up, something that's near and dear to my heart. There's a lot of talk about different
Mhm.
things in our country, but dude, you are a rugged individual who is making something happen from nothing.
Thank you.
I mean that
Mhm.
sincerely. There there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is awesome. That is what we need in this country. People that are shaking things up, that are creating value, that are serving people, serving a demand, building something from nothing. And oh, by the way, this is not guaranteed for you. You are taking on a lot of
That's
risk
right.
financially, emotionally,
Hmm.
relationally with your family. We understand that. We understand farming. We've done
Hmm.
it. It was very important for me and Jenny to farm all the animals that we distribute and sell because we need to be able to walk in the shoes of that farmer and understand the risk and be able
Hmm.
to share that story. And I just want to commend you. I think you embody true American rugged
Thank you.
individualism. We need more of that, not less. We don't need
Yes,
a big
absolutely.
system that's trying to take care of us because it doesn't work. Centralized planning does not work.
That's right.
So I believe in that
Hmm.
Catholic spirit of what you're doing. I applaud you. I respect you. Thank you for thank you for thank you for taking the chance in America to live a way that so many people wish they could in this world and will never have the opportunity. Because I've been around the world. I've been to different countries. I've been to third world countries. I've been to countries where there is no hope. And so I just want to
Hmm.
congratulate you and thank you for taking that chance and being rugged.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you to you guys and your customers. Like without a market for this chicken, we couldn't have done any of this. So, thank you for that. And honestly, like it's you know it's a huge group project. It's not just me. It's all of our employees, our vendors, and our customers that have just all been willing to, it's not the easiest thing to probably work with somebody like us, where we can't just at the drop of a hat get you this exact thing, an exact size that you want. you know there's a lot of give and take, and we're really thankful for all of our customers being understanding of, we're very susceptible to weather since our birds are outside. We're climate controlled barn. Those chickens are the same size year round, no matter what. Everything's controlled. um, so we understand the difficulties from your guys' side of things too, that you guys take on working with somebody like us, and we're really thankful for you guys.
That's a great point, Joe, and that's something that we really want to educate our consumers on. Is that you talk about size variations, and so often people don't think about it, but there could be a variance in the size of a chicken breast or the size of a chicken
Hmm.
thigh or even a whole bird. Right
That's
there,
right.
there is a variance, and that variance is dependent upon what time of the year that bird's raised in. Are the days longer? If the days are longer, that bird's going to
Hmm.
consume more feed. Uh, we are
Yeah.
not we are not a factory farm, right? You can't control
Hmm.
you're probably the best poultry farmer I know, and yet you will never be able to control the way that you're farming, right? I mean, like we're farming with
No.
nature, with the cycles of nature, and that's where there needs to be some give and take. I think Americans become so accustomed to 1 pound this or just exactly the same size, and that's not the way it works.
Hmm.
There's give and take in
That's
our
right.
working professional relationship, and there really needs to be give and take from our consumers as well. And we so often say if people are just looking
Exactly.
for the lowest price product, we're not the farms for you. We're not. We're not raising
Exactly.
a,
Yep.
a
Nope.
commodity. We're not raising a conventionally raised product the same as everybody else. Ours actually has nutritional value to it. So it's not
That's right.
comparing apples to apples. Jenny, what
That's
feedback
right.
input do you
Yep.
have here?
Yeah, I was just gonna just think about that. If we were to be paid as small farmers on the nutritional value of our food, and the environmental impact of our food, and the healing value of our food, it would, I think the pay structure would be so much different, which is what food is, right? Food is what
Yes.
fuels us and makes our bodies stronger.
Hmm.
But we look at it as like we want to spend the least amount that we possibly can. Or that, most people look at it that way. Like you should spend the least amount. Like we constantly want our government to decrease the cost of food, and I just think that's just such a backwards way of looking at something that is healing and is fuel for our bodies. Like it should be something we should spend more time on,
That's
more
right.
money on.
That's right. And if you look at, I mean, there's charts out there now that show, what percentage of someone's income was spent on food in, like, I don't know, let's just say the early 20s, or I'm sorry, the 1920s, versus what they spent income in healthcare. It's completely done in inverse. So people spent more money on food but less money on healthcare, and our country is completely cheap food, get it as cheap as possible, but let's spend tons of money on healthcare and let's all get sick and go to the doctor to try to fix ourselves. When, like you said, Jenny, if we looked at cost per nutrient, I would say our food is probably way cheaper than conventionally raised chicken or whatever, all whole multitude of different things. But we just don't weigh in all those costs, or environmental costs. There's the government is spending an astronomical amount of money trying to trying. They're not actually very doing a good job, in my opinion, trying to fix the issues of conventional farming and the issues with, um, you know, people getting sick from lack of nutrition. So those costs aren't they don't run through someone's mind when they're seeing on a screen or in the grocery store, um, oh my gosh, this chicken breast is 4 times or 5 times or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times as much as this chicken breast. But what are the real costs of that chicken breast that's $1.25 or $1.99 a pound? It is There's a lot of costs that go into that. That's not just the dollar that they see on the package.
Absolutely. We educate our consumers a lot, our customers a lot about that, because you're going to pay for it in the front end with healthy meat, or you're going to pay for it in the back one with healthcare and hospital stays, and or just in being sick and lethargic and not feeling good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So let's talk
Yep.
about a little bit about the future of health. Like what trends are you seeing in our
Mhm.
country that do get you excited about where we're going?
Yeah. So I think truly pasture-raised chicken, is becoming more and more understood, that there is a difference, that free range and pasture-raised, the FSIS, which is a government entity, has always put them as the same. They're synonymous with each other, and they've just recently come out with a ruling that that's not true, or that defines them differently. Um, so I'm excited about that. I think education through podcasts, YouTube videos, emails from legitimate farmers, from legitimate companies that actually know what they're talking about, is becoming bigger and bigger, and honestly, a bigger threat to this conglomerate of big ag. So when you start to see big ag fighting against something or trying to get in the space, with whether it be legitimately or not, you're putting a dent in the market. And I think that truly, pasture raised chickens that are actually out on pasture are going to become more and more readily available to people through lots of different channels. Where it used to be, you had to get up at, well, the consumer didn't have to get up as early, but let's just say you got to get up at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. You haven't seen your kids all week, but you're going to go to the farmers market and you're going to go meet your farmer. That's still a great way to do it if you have the time to do that. But a lot of people don't have the time or the energy to do that. So all these outlets, like you guys shipping meats right to someone's door, um, I think that's just going to open up a huge market and a huge opportunity for farmers all over the country if they can tap into that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So a little bit more about that too. What about technology do you use, Joe? I think you're using more like automated food systems with your chickens. Like what do you tap into when it comes to technology and innovation?
Yep. So another thing with moving down to Texas is, since we can spread those infrastructure costs out more, um, we have moved to an automatic feed system on our coops. we've also gone to a very large coop now. So we were already using it from the standard in the pasture poultry community. We were already using a fairly large coop, but we are now experimenting with a 36-foot wide by 96-foot long coop with automatic feed system, obviously automatic water system, because those things. I don't know if you guys have ever read the book E-Myth. Michael Garber, I believe, is who wrote
Michael
it.
Gerber.
And
Yep.
I sound like I read all these books. Gerber, yeah, I that's like one of like a small handful of books that I've read on. Like I'm very much an audible and visual guy, so I read a lot more, or listen to books or something, or podcasts. But I did read that book, and he says in it, the mechanic shouldn't necessarily own the mechanic shop, and vice versa. Um, there's things that I learned in that book and in a book called Lean Farm. I can't remember who wrote that book. That's a very good book, also, and they very much talk about how there's things that add value to your customers, and then there's things that don't add value to your customers. And one of the things that does not add any value to our customers is if we are in there with 5 gallon buckets all day, every day, filling up feeders. Um, they want clean, nutritious, and humanely raised chicken. And going in and filling feeders and disturbing them all day, filling up their feeders, doesn't add any value to anybody. It just adds cost. That's it. So that was a low hanging fruit for us on automation. You there's things that you could automate more that I'm like, well, I don't think it's worth the cost or something like that. But having the automatic feeders has been tremendous for us. Trying to think other technologies. Um, now we're using a big grain cart that all of our feed comes in bulk, goes into a bin, then goes into the cart, and then we fill up the bins on our coops. So we're not. It's we up in Michigan. I was paying 3 to 4 people probably 6 hours a day all summer long to feed chickens. And now we can do that same amount of we can feed the same amount of chickens in 2 hours a week, one guy. And it's just like made a world of difference. So that's been huge for us. Um, honestly, we've tried some softwares for tracking records, production records, and they're okay. I just feel like we are gonna be switching, I think, back to just now that we've started using Google Docs a lot more, or Google Drive, and we'll just do that, and I think that'll work probably just as good. So uh, I guess that's a good example. We've started using Google Drive a lot more. I'm very low tech, but trying to learn more of the um, it is, when I was very small, it didn't matter much if I had all these spreadsheets and records and everything. But now that we're getting up in size, I guess I never really went into this, but in 2026, we're going to be finishing probably close to 500,000 broiler chickens out in pasture. And
That's awesome, Joe.
1% difference in death loss. Thank you. But like it's just so much more important now and so much more costly if we make mistakes in feed conversion or in death loss or something that our records are becoming more and more important. So trying to be very good and diligent in making sure that we're keeping those records, looking at them regularly, and then adjusting accordingly as we look at them.
Yeah. It's definitely better to make mistakes early on when you're small, learn from those so that you can, as you grow, you don't have make those same mistakes that cost you a lot more for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was going to be my next
Yep.
question actually is about like Joe's ranch in the future. What is the next, I feel like 5 years is almost even too far to look ahead. The next few years, 3 to 5 years. Doesn't seem like 5 years just seems like so long, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So we've got some exciting things. We're going to be moving production down here for all of our broilers. So all of our customers that we're getting from chicken from us up there have all agreed to get it from down here. So that's awesome. I was pretty nervous that like I don't want to lose any of our customers. Our customers are all awesome, but we're going to keep producing for them. Um, we are most likely going to be doing turkeys down here. We raised about 4,500 turkeys a year up in Michigan. Um, and we're still kind of figuring that out, but there's a good chance we're going to be doing turkeys down here. And then we've actually been out of the egg business for 3 years now. And again, it just didn't lend itself very well up in Michigan, where okay, we have to have all this double infrastructure. Um, when you get small amounts, it's easy to have them in a barn somewhere and let them outside during the winter and give them hay and stuff like that. But when you start getting large numbers of egg laying hens, it can be very difficult. So we won't have to have multiple infrastructures or anything. They'll be out being moved year round. So yeah, we're looking at getting back into eggs, but also going to a different market. So our market when we did eggs was very much wholesale. Really, when we ended, it was a lot of retail, but it was a lot of commercial kitchens that would take them in flats, and there's just not much margin there. So we're kicking around the idea of doing a maybe either our own brand or working wholesale with other brands that we know and trust to produce eggs for them. Um, but that's not anything that's happening right this second, but I think we will probably move that direction. It's just kind of difficult to make those decisions when it's like our broiler, our chicken side of things. The demand is there to pretty much take all of our effort right now. So it's kind of like, why would we skirt away from that? One of the only reasons I can see is just that certain parts of the land could lend itself better to different types of poultry. And it diversifies our offering. So if something were to happen with broilers and it didn't affect the hens or turkeys or vice versa, and I should mention, we'll probably, so we don't currently have cattle down here, but we will most likely be getting some. We'll probably always have ruminants somewhere on the farm, um, mob grazing in front of chickens, but it's never going to be like a focus or a staple of ours. It'll always be more, more just like we are going to do this because it's good for the land, but we're not going to be at least not in the next 3 to 5 years, will we be a beef company of any sorts.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I wanted to ask you this too. This is just kind of think about this. So, summer in Texas, I mean, it's freaking hot. What do you do in the summer with your chickens?
hmm
Both meat and egg
So
yolks. Well,
this year, yeah, this year we were told by the locals that it was a cool year, so we'll see. But we had consistent, 95 to 100 degrees highs from probably middle of probably June, July, August, and half of September. Um, but the birds actually performed really well. So we have another thing we kind of like. So with the automatic feed system on our coops, we have solar panels and batteries, and so now we have electricity, which once you have electricity on your mobile coops, it lends itself to a lot of other things. So we actually have fans inside our
hmm,
coops now, which has
okay.
helped a lot. We're kind of on the top of a crest. Our farm sits on top where we kind of look down on both directions, and we have a nice breeze that kind of goes right up and over. So that's been really helpful. Our coops have big garage doors at the ends, so we open those up wide open. They're pretty much open 24/7 from. I think we opened them in May and shut them in early November or something like that. Um, so the birds surprisingly handled the heat really, really well. I think a big thing is for us, we're moving our chickens every day. So, and we're moving them early in the morning, so it's not stressful on them. It's cool outside, but they're not sitting on their own hot manure and hot litter all day long. Where there's chicken barns around here that their electricity bill has got to be astronomical of all the fans you see on these barns because they're just got to keep that air moving because it's so warm down by the chickens and they're so packed in there. Um, that we don't have that issue because our birds can go outside. In the heat of the day, they are pretty much in our coop because that's where the shade is at. But in the mornings and the evenings, they can spread out a lot because they can go outside of the coops. They can follow the shade as the sun goes down. The shade gets cast on the coop. They follow that shade out. So they're just very comfortable. Um, so I was very nervous about the heat, but to be honest, we had more issues with heat in Michigan this year than we did here in Texas. So it's been
Hmm.
it's been pretty impressive what you know what we've been able to do here.
That's awesome. Cool. I was wondering about that, how that was working. Um,
Hmm.
I don't. Justin? Do you have any other questions for Joe? I think we're. I don't want to take up too much time of your time, Joe.
I think we can just wrap it up with closing thoughts here. I think, you have the last question here. What's one rebel truth about farming or food sustainability that you want listeners to take away? Um, and then how can listeners connect with you, follow your journey, see what you're doing, learn what being cutting edge in the pasture poultry world really means? And also, I think it could be a huge inspiration to those who want to get into pasture poultry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a rebel truth that I'd want people to take away from this conversation, I would, I always, this is kind of my go-to, and it's kind of like, I, it's just, it's so true that it's never gotten old saying it, but knowing your farmer and uh, and trusting the people behind your food is so important. And it's not, this is not a foreign concept. Everybody used to know. Either you raised your own food back in the day, or your neighbor did. Everyone knew where their food came from. It's only been the last 100 years or less that people have gotten so far away from where their food is being produced, um, that I would just say don't just trust a label on the grocery store shelf, because people will lie to make a dollar. Like, that is just like an absolute no. People will lie for no reason. They'll definitely lie to get your money. So don't believe everything you see. Verify, um, build trust and rapport with, a farm or a company that's doing it right, and then um, support them with what they're doing, and commit to buying your meat from them, and so that they've got some consistency. Um, and then, as far as where people can connect with me or other farmers, I would say the best way to get a hold of me is to go through our farm. We still have our farm website, joesfarm.us. That goes to, my sister handles that and then kind of distributes from there. Um, but you can see our Instagram, joesfarm.us, and Farmer Joe's Ranch, or I think it's Farmer. I should know this. Farmer underscore Joe's. I don't know. It's if you look us up, Farmer or
We'll
Joe's
post it.
Farm.us. I believe I linked to that. Yeah. Okay. And then
We'll link it.
Facebook. I still do a lot of things under Joe's Farm. Um, and then there's an app out there called Minex. If you're really wanting information directly from me and want to talk to me about something, um, it's it's very difficult for me to jump on a phone call, at any given point to talk to people about, starting their farm. And although I wish I could do that, it's I can't do that at this point in my life right now. So this is an app that just you can text me a question. It's guaranteed to be me texting you back, and I can answer it. It does charge. I think it's like $15 a question, which I've gotten pushback from people on that, and I'm like, well, if it's not worth you spending $15 to ask me the question, then it's not worth my time to be answering that question. So it's, I
Absolutely.
just, it's kind of that awkward thing where it's like, I don't want to have to charge people, but it's just, I'm too busy not to, do something like that. Or another great way to do it is come to an Apple conference or something where my entire time there is just devoted to talking to people about pasture poultry, and that's all I have to do. Because I get this too. Sometimes we see somebody as like, oh, Justin and Jenny are rebel pastors. Like, that's who they are. It's like, no, they're also parents, and they also have kids that they need to deal with, and they have a community. Um, so my life is pretty much passion poultry when I'm at the APA conference, and it's not necessarily always that when I'm a day to day basis. Anyways, getting connected, those are the best ways to reach out.
Yeah. That's that's awesome, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
You're
thanks, Joe.
if somebody's not willing to spend $15 to ask you a question, then they don't deserve to ask you a question. So it's yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds. I hate saying it. Like, that makes, like, I don't know. It feels uncomfortable, but like, it has to be that way. Otherwise, I just don't get it. I just can't get back to everybody. So it's just one of those things you got to do, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Hey, man, appreciate what you're doing. I love your journey. I love your boldness. I love your vision. I love what you're doing. I think we need more of it
Thank
in
you.
this country. I think that's how we affect change. I think that's how we inspire change. I think that's how we inspire the next generation of leaders. So, cheers to you. Cheers to the coming year. Cheers to Texas. And
Thank you.
we can't wait to visit you down in Texas this year.
Yes. You don't know
Yeah,
it yet,
come
but
on
we'll be
down.
down there this summer
I'm excited to show you
or
guys.
this next year at some point.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I
Thanks,
want to
Jen.
go in the summer.
perfect. And that's a testament, you know. Yeah, and I know we're wrapping up, but I think that's just a testament to your guys' commitment to making sure you guys know everything that's going into your customers' food. You would be surprised how many people do not want to go to, to their farm because they're nervous of what they're going to see or something like that. But I just so anyways, all that hats off to you guys for making the trek down here to invest. I mean, it's not going to be cheap for you guys to fly down here, rent a car, come here, stay the night. Like that's a big commitment. So thank you for putting in the hard work to make sure that you guys are being truthful to your customers. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Cheers, man.
All right. We'll see you.